Now, as we get into the era of Christ and the New Testament, even though the temple and the priesthood had been restored, operating for centuries, the synagogue continued to flourish as well. The party of the Pharisees had become the leaders of the synagogue. Religious schools had been set up. The most famous was that of Gamaliel. These schools had no connection to the priesthood or to the temple. Rather, they were the source of rabbis for the many and growing number of synagogues. And what is so critical for us to grasp is that the teaching of the synagogue centered on oral Torah, also known as tradition, or as Jesus once called it, traditions of the elders. This stood in direct opposition to the temple and to the priesthood that was run by the party of the Sadducees. They did not accept as valid the tradition of the elders as taught in the synagogue. Rather, they accepted only the written and original Torah of Moses and the prophets as their scriptural authority. Well, now let's discuss this concept of oral Torah, tradition, before we get back into Acts chapter 6 so we can all be on the same page. Oral Torah or tradition are interpretations of the Torah law, that is, the law of Moses. It is somewhat like doctrine is to Christianity. I hope you pay attention to this, please. It is somewhat like doctrine is to Christianity. It's only that different terms are used. In Judaism, they use the term traditions. In Christianity, the parallel term is doctrines. That is, within Christianity, every denomination has decided to interpret the Bible in its own way. And it comes to some conclusions about what scripture passages mean. Then when these interpretations are adopted by church authorities, they're called doctrines. For example, Southern Baptists have the doctrine of eternal security. It says that once you are saved, there is no way and no circumstances under which you can lose your salvation. This is their interpretation of scriptures in that regard. Catholics have the doctrine of transubstantiation, whereby when one takes communion, the wine literally becomes blood. Not symbolically, but it actually supernaturally changes form, just as the bread literally becomes flesh. This is their interpretation of the scriptures in that regard. Both the Southern Baptists and the Catholics, however, would not really agree that these are mere interpretations. Rather, to their minds, this is what Scripture plainly teaches. So, from their perspective, they are teaching the Bible when they teach their doctrines. You catch that? They're considered one and the same. There is nearly no distinction made between doctrine and Scripture except perhaps at an academic level. It's the same thing with Judaism. We can rightly speak of oral Torah as interpretations of Scripture. But essentially, to the minds of rabbis and their Jewish congregations, the oral Torah is merely the discovery of the true inherent meaning of the written Torah. Thus, there is no difference between the written Torah of Moses and the oral Torah of the rabbis. That's how they think about it. So from the Jewish viewpoint, every interpretation given by recognized Jewish rabbis in the Talmud was something Moses actually had received from God at Mount Sinai long ago, and over time, inspired sages and rabbis discovered these truths. It was not received in the sense that these interpretations were also written down by Moses, but rather the interpretations were supernaturally and organically contained within the, just kind of hidden within the letters of the Torah. In the same way that the fruit of a tree is contained in kind of a hidden form within a seed from which that tree came. So if the written Torah of Moses is the tree, then the oral Torah is the fruit of that same tree. And since both of them came from the same seed, then they're essentially of identical divine substance. That's the logic. And again, while that concept might sound very strange to Gentiles, I assure you it's only because of the terms that are used in Judaism. If I gave to you as an illustration that the Bible is the tree, and the doctrines of the Christian church are the fruit of that tree, then because they both come from the same seed, the seed is God, then they're organically inseparable and therefore essentially of the same divine substance. What I just told you is generally the church's position about church doctrines, even if you weren't aware of it. That is, there is no discernible difference between the Bible and church doctrine. If the church teaches their doctrine, they feel they're teaching you the Bible. If the synagogue teaches their traditions, they feel they're teaching you the Torah. Now, while I don't agree with that stance of either the church or the synagogue, some would fight to their last breath to defend it. What I just told you usually isn't ever expressed to the congregation within Christianity. Rather, it is taken as a given that doesn't need any expression. So we can listen to months and years of church sermons that might not include much more than a few words taken from a handful of Bible verses, but at the same time, pastors insist that what they're doing is teaching you the Bible. The same goes with Judaism. The synagogue leaders will teach what Rabbi so-and-so said from the Talmud and expound on it for hours, while perhaps including no more than a few verses from the written biblical Torah. But at the end of the day, they will insist that what they're doing is teaching the written biblical Torah. This perspective is only rarely challenged because it represents at least a couple of thousand years of custom. I hope you're following this.